Okay, so we all know about the recent Dataslate update that came with GW's most recent Warhammer community post. And what it did, it gave a whole bunch of rules updates for several factions. But today, we're going to take a look at what the Dataslate did for Necrons. Now, when I think of Necrons, I think of a few abilities which are probably the strongest core abilities in the book for us. My Will Be Done, Relentless March, and Rites of Reanimation. My Will Be Done helps you with your offensive ability, giving you the extra chance to hit. Relentless March gives you an extra inch to your move to help you cross the board, and Rites of Reanimation is your main resurrection mechanic, which is done by a Technomancer or Illuminor Xeras. Now, these are the three of the most important abilities I think that being core is. We will look at some other benefits of being core down the line as well, but these are the ones that excite me the most when we come to choosing the new core units. But I guess the question is, in case you haven't seen it, who is the new core units in our book? We'll start off with the Canoptic Reanimator, the Canoptic Wraiths, the Flayed Ones, the Locust Heavy Destroyer and Locust Destroyers, the Obsidian Destroyers, the Scorpec Destroyers, and of course the Triarch Praetorians. Now, the biggest winners, in my opinion, from the book are the Scorpecs, the Flayed Ones, and the Canoptic Wraiths. Now, the reason for this is the new core keyword, as we will soon discover down the line, has given the units a lot more offensive ability between the ability to have My Will Be Done, some stratagems down the line as well as being able to put into a transport. So these units are quite punchy, quite killy, and the ability to stack extra buffs on them to make them more damagey is very good, especially the Scorpec Destroyers. They get any extra attacks they can get and extra strength they can get can help them definitely cleave through a lot of units. In addition, these units also have some defensive mechanics already baked into their sheet. The Scorpecs have high toughness, high wound count, as well as having the stratagem for -1 to wound them. The Flayed Ones can be taken in big units, and being one wound models are the ideal model to have reanimation protocols, and also the Technomancer being able to bring them back as well. Unfortunately, the Technomancer can only bring one Flayed One back a turn. They're not Necron Warriors, they're Flayed Ones, but they still have the benefit to that. And the Canoptic Wraiths, while they aren't as good as hitting, they benefit from the Canoptic synergy with the Technomancer, who you will probably be seeing a lot more. And they also benefit from a good invuln save, as well as a good amount of wounds. So the Canoptic Wraiths are definitely a win. So these units, they have quite a bit of okay damage potential, like the Scorpecs and the Flayed Ones can have good damage potential, especially with the Flayed Ones stratagems. And they also have some okay defensive mechanics, or can be taken in big units to help benefit the reanimation protocols rules. Now, unfortunately, not all of the units that were core have been really improved. Now, there are two here. The Canoptic Reanimator and also the Triarch Praetorians are two of the units that I think have lost out from getting the core. And I just want to clarify, they have not actually lost anything. It's just that being core does not benefit these units nearly as much as they would think. The Canoptic Reanimator is kind of a no-brainer. The unit was there as a supporting unit, but being core does not really increase its survivability, its toughness. There's no real core stratagems that can apply to help keep the Reanimator alive. It can't hide. All of the issues it suffered from before, it still suffers with. So the Reanimator hasn't really been improved by core. The Triarch Praetorians are unfortunately just a casualty of being dynastic agent infantry. As we will soon find out, a lot of the stratagems, the abilities, the equipment, all of the things that being core benefits, the Triarch Praetorian do not get as they do not have the Dynasty keyword. We'll go into some more details about the Dynasty keyword and some finicky things about it near the end of this little video. But until then, just be aware that a lot of the core benefits won't apply to the Praetorians as they are not part of your dynasty. Okay, so let's look at some other reasons why core is good. So the first of all that has got a lot of talk is Amrakir the Traveller and his aura to give core units +1 attack. Now this is very good in all manner of destroyers, such as the Scorpex and the Ophidians. It also helps you for the flayed ones as well. Amrakir is a good way to give extra attacks to your fighty units. You have Nemesis Zandrek. He has a benefit to give you a random roll on a table, and this can apply. These things include such abilities as +1 attack, +1 ballistic skill, and also there's the other one which I can't remember. Unfortunately, Zandrek doesn't see much love because he's Sautek, and if you're playing Sautek, you're probably playing Imhotep the Stormlord. Everybody's ever faithful, the Royal Warden. He can help your units fall back and declare a charge. So if your Scorpex are locked in combat, the Royal Warden can help you get your destroyers out of combat and being able to do that and declare a charge. And in addition, if someone does manage to ping down your Lockhurst destroyers or your Lockhurst heavy destroyers, you will be able to get them out of combat and still be able to shoot with them. You're no longer locked into trying to get the protocol of the conquering tyrant. Xeras is definitely been one that has been talked about a lot, in addition to not only having the rights of reanimation and arguably a better rights of reanimation as well, as we will discuss later on the video. He also has the mechanical augmentation, which is +1 strength, +1 toughness, and +1 ballistic skill, if I remember top of my head. And this is a way to upgrade your units. Unfortunately, with Xeras, there is always going to be a suboptimal choice in the upgrade path that you can take. There's always going to be one option that you don't want to roll. So the fact that it is random is unfortunate. On the plus side, Xeras, if he gets in combat and he's an okay fighter, he can potentially look to increase the amount that he is upgrading. So the next unit we're talking about is the Night Scythe. Spoilers. The Night Scythe can now transport your core infantry, so it can transport such units as Scorpex, Ophidians, destroyers, Locust heavy destroyers, regular destroyers. It can transport flayed ones. The Night Scythe's ability to get units out is quite fantastic, and also the stratagem, which we'll go on in a second as well, with the Night Scythe can be a very good benefit. And of course, as we've been spoiled by the text, the Silent King. His ability to affect core units within 6 can help you reroll hit rolls or ranged attacks, which is not fantastic, as if you really want the Lockhurst heavy destroyers to hit, you'll give them My Will Be Done, and they have a built-in hit roll as it is. But the Pharaon of the Blades aura, that is fantastic. Rerolling the wound roll on your heavy hitting Scorpex or heavy hitting destroyers, very, very useful. Help you keep up the good damage from the units. Now, we're just going to touch on a few other interesting stratagems, warlord traits, relics, and arcana. We have the prismatic dimensional breach as the first stratagem, which can be used by either the Night Scythe or the Monolith. Now, the thing about the prismatic dimensional breach, which is very interesting, is that it does not have a minimum range setup that you have to be away from your enemy. So, as an example, if you were to deep strike down, normally the game dictates that you have to be 9 inches away from a unit. But with the prismatic dimensional breach, you could turn up from a Night Scythe or a Monolith, be within 3 inches of the vehicle, and as long you could be 2 inches away from the enemy. This is very useful in effectively guaranteeing a charge with your Scorpex, with your Flayed ones, with your Ophidians. So this is a very useful stratagem, and if Night Scythe and transporting Scorpex takes off, I can expect this to be seeing a lot of play. And in fact, with the Night Scythe, to be honest, the Night Scythe can give you great range on the ability to transport people. So there was some math that was being thrown around where the Night Scythe would pre-game move with the Scorpex and it's 6 inches. The Scorpex would disembark 3 inches to make it 9 inches, as well as having a Royal Warden or a Lord. They would then get the Sudden Storm the Sudden Storm command protocol, which gives them an extra inch to their move, as well as the Relentless Aura, which means that they would then get a 10-inch move. That is 19 inches covered in one turn. They can pretty much get everywhere, and if your opponent has not screened his infantry, they can find them being chased by some very, very angry Scorpex. The other stratagem that is quite useful is the disruption fields. Now, this is a very simple stratagem, +1 strength on a Necron's core unit. Stacking strength is quite useful, especially on units like Flayed ones, who can have a lots of attacks and can fight additionally as well at the end of combat with one of their stratagems. This can help buff their strength to make them be able to punch through things like orcs, orc boys mobs. You need to be strength 5 to start reliably hurting them, so disruption fields is very useful. And another interesting thing about disruption fields is that it's one of the few stratagems that mentions just Necron's core, so this is a stratagem that can be used by the Triarch Praetorians. It's one of the few, as you can see from Prismatic Dimensional Breach. You can't use it on the Praetorians, but disruption fields you can. So the next one is a Warlord trait, Implacable Conqueror. When a friendly Dynasty core unit within 6 of his Warlord, you can reroll charge rolls made for that unit. This is now a way for you to get reroll charge rolls for your Scorpex without being locked into a Dynasty. I think Novok is the one that lets you reroll charge rolls, if I just top my head. And finally, this is a bit less exciting, but I just wanted to bring this up as well. The Hypermaterial Ablator. This is a Cryptic Arcana. It's one of the more expensive ones, but if you feel that you are loading up a lot of resources and a lot of killing power into a single unit, something that I advise against, then you can bring this one to help them get the benefits of light cover. And now this can affect things like destroyers, flayed ones. It just helps keep your relatively squishy units protected from lots of firepower. And of course, let's not forget the Veil of Darkness, one of the most picked and one of our best relics in the book. Veil of Darkness can now work with some really nasty, hard-hitting units. You grab yourself your Chronomancer, your Scorpex, you drop them behind, or you drop them onto top of an objective that's been left, or drop them onto a flank. You can easily find yourself surprising your enemy and crushing some of his expensive heavy infantry with a flail of Scorpec blades. Now, as previously mentioned, the Dynasty keyword is a big thing. This is sort of exclusively for the Triarch Praetorians here. Some things to catch out. There is a difference between the Silent King and the Necron Overlord's My Will Be Done. Now, this is something that was pointed out to me, and I'm very thankful that this was pointed out to me because I would have completely missed it. As you can see, the Silent King is applied to Necron's core or Triarch Praetorians, whereas regular Necron Overlords only to Dynasty core. Now, the Silent King was designed to not care about dynasty, since he is a dynastic agent himself and he is designed to slot into any dynasty's army. So it would make sense to not lock him behind a Zirkin dynasty, otherwise that would make him very bad compared to the other dynasties. if you have your Silent King not buffing your Novok dynasty, I think some people would be a bit upset. But this is very important to keep an eye on. Less relevant than the next example, which is the difference of rites of reanimation from Illuminor Xeras and the Technomancer. And I would argue, if you're taking Triarch Praetorians, this is actually one of the big things you need to keep an eye on. Your Technomancer cannot resurrect Triarch Praetorians, since they are not dynastic core infantry, whereas Illuminor Xeras can resurrect Triarch Praetorians, which is very interesting. And I will be honest, I do kind of wish that they had renamed Illuminor Xeras, his rites of reanimation, to be something a bit distinct, such as like superior rites of reanimation, and then you just bake into that the ability that he can do it, the fact that he could just do it again. You put that into the same paragraph of text. That way, you know that Xeras actually has a mechanically distinct rites of reanimation. I appreciate it that when the Codex came out, this wasn't something that actually really made a difference, since all the Necron's core infantry back when the Codex came out, none of them were dynastic agents like the Praetorians. They were all dynastic keyworded, so you could basically do it. But in this circumstance, they have changed the wording, so I I would say that I would appreciate it if they just put onto the abilities a word to make them distinct, to make them stand out compared to the abilities that are shared by another unit when they are actually distinct abilities. Like the Silent King should have been like My Will Dominates as an example. But yeah, I just wanted to bring this up as I have seen about Battle Report some things, and I thought that Xeras can resurrect it, but I was wrong. As it was pointed out that Xeras has got a distinct rights of reanimation ability, so that was very good to find out. But yeah, this has been a relatively short video. I just wanted to bring up my opinion on the core changes. I think they are very good. I really like the idea that Games Workshop is experimenting with the balanced data slate, because I think that's a very good idea and I would like to see that done more. And B, I like to see the idea of them taking away and giving the core keyword to units. I know they took away the core keyword from the Adeptus Mechanicus Iron Strider Ballistari, and I think that was a good experiment to do. And I like what they have done here with the core keyword, giving it to Necrons. It has made the Necrons have an extra bit of life. It has made me feel more incentivized to take the cool destroyer units rather than my standard 2000 point armies, which is just ignoring all the nice fancy stuff such as the Scorpec destroyers or just destroyers in general, and just gone for the boring blobs of warriors, blobs of Lich Guard, just the boring stuff like that. So I'm very excited to see how the core keyword changes things for us. I'm very excited to see how we are in the future. I'm looking forward to getting a couple of games out there for you. I have a 2000 point list designed. Hopefully I'll get a game next week to see how the core word changes in the score packs. My opinion on the change as well is that I have seen a lot of people try to math hammer how absurd score pick damage out can be with all of things. I honestly think that putting all of your eggs in one basket with a souped up unit of destroyers is just going to be bad. 40k is no longer a game about just killing everything that moves. 40k is a game of objective control and map control. And at the end of the day, if you have just all your resources invested in one unit, that unit can be locked in combat, that unit can be kited, that unit can just be killed, because Scorpex are not the hardest thing to kill, and then you could find yourself without any threatening units to take their positions. But just in case people wondered, I just wanted to put a couple of social media links on the page as well. We have my Instagram on the left at XVBroadside, and on the right we have my Facebook page, Lord Drago1 Miniature Painting. These are all just sort of fun social media things. I do like to put my artwork up in there a lot, show my works in progress with Necrons. They're by far my favourite army I own, and I look forward to getting some more miniatures painted. Working on a couple of bits of Lich Guard right now. But anyway, I would just like to say a massive thank you to everyone who hung around and who listened to me explain the core keyword. And please, in the comments, I just want to drop your opinions. What do you think about the Necron core keyword? What do you think about Games Workshop doing this change? This is quite a change. I don't think any Necron players were expecting this to happen, but I am not. I'm not complaining that it has happened. I think it's a wonderful idea, and it sets a great precedent for the future as well. So please, in the comments, drop your opinions on the Necron's core, your likes, your dislikes, your worries, your fears, your hopes. Just pop it in the comments. I'll have a read of it, and it'll be great. But until then, everybody, thank you